the Cabinet Office, Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and Shibuya Government. So I hope this is useful for you. And after that, I think that we have a Q&A with Matt, but feel free to ask questions, specifically if you want to understand a little bit more about the context of any of the things that I explained. So Matt was asking me to give you an overview of the policies that are here. It will be very high level, and we can get into the details in particular of what you are interested later. Here. Oh, I'm sorry, there are two lines. This is like the TV. All right, so here we go. So the first thing you're gonna see is something that is called the Japan 5-year startup plan. And probably you heard about that, but that was in 2022, at the beginning of 2022. And it was a very important document because it put together all the policies from the central government to align all the ministries, the administration, but the whole economy. So the way in Japan this works is you need kind of a signal, a vision to start mobilizing all the stakeholders. And that's what happened with that launch of the plan. It was launched by Prime Minister Kishida, and it was launched in CIC Tokyo, which is probably the largest hub of startups that you have in Japan. You have around 300 startups being there. So that plan sets very clear signal and targets and very ambitious objectives. They want to increase investment by 10 times, realize 100 unicorns, and do 100,000 startups. Those are just numbers, but what is important is the signal, where they want to go. They know they are not there yet, and they want to mobilize everyone. The second part is they are doing a comprehensive approach. They know very well what are the areas that they need to improve. There was a lot of analysis in the previous year for around almost 3 years, looking at the ecosystem, comparing it internationally, looking at areas where they could improve and how. And then they decide to attack in every front. So we have 3 main blocks. They would call them talent and networks, you will see, but that's human resources and basically on the entrepreneurial side, because it's the area that is missing a little bit more. It's also on the funding and exits, and that's something that will be of your interest because it goes into the VC industry, angel investment too, but also the exits. How do you exit and get more profitable? And then something they call open innovation. You need to understand that as involvement of the corporate Japan and all the corporations that are here. Now, just for your context, Japan is the 3rd, 4th largest economy of the world if you count the EU as a whole. And it's one that has the 3rd largest of multinational corporations in the world. So there is a lot of capital in the corporate Japan, and it hasn't been unleashed yet to the startup ecosystem. So that's one of the things that are there. Okay. So as you see, they're trying to mobilize every part of the economy. And the signal goes to all the ministries. So the Cabinet Office, think about it as the White House for you. It's an overarching entity that sets the policy framework and then start asking ministries to implement. So on talent and networks, these are the areas. There are many small details, but these are just high areas just to give you a sense. The first thing they are aiming at is general education. They're trying to basically change the mindset, but also the structure of general education to become more mentor-based and more innovation-based. That means more hands-on training, starting in elementary school, junior high, and high school. That's the vision. How it's being implemented is little by little. So you will see little programs. But the vision is a restructuring of the education, going more into entrepreneurial. So that's a long-term commitment, and that's where they are going to. The second part is in the universities and research institutes. Japan has among the best R&D of the world, and it doesn't get commercialized as much as in other countries. If you look at the science and technology clusters of the world, that's a ranking that WIPO, the World International Property Organization, does. Japan has the largest one, which is the Tokyo one, and the 5th largest one, which is the Osaka, Kansai area. That's in terms of production of quality patents and quality papers. It's not the number of, because if not, China will win. It's the quality, and then it gets used. So the research institutes, the universities have a lot of that, but it's not getting commercialized. So there are three big initiatives there for you to know. The first one is a massive university fund that's around, they call it the 100 billion yen fund. So that's a massive amount of money that goes to the universities. And the goal is to reform the university completely and to make it more commercially focused and innovation focused, but looking internationally. So this program aims to change completely the universities and usually also giving them an endowment to work more like the American ones. And that's very complicated, right? But they are doing this through this massive fund. Out of the universities that apply for this fund, they apply 10, the top 10 of the country. There were at least 7 of them were top, and then you have 3 more. The decision went to give the first funding to Tohoku University in Sendai. It's probably not the choice you would think in your mind. You would think Tokyo University or Kyoto University. Those two lost. Only Tohoku got it. And if you see the news about this, the interesting thing is the panel chose Tohoku because it was the most ambitious one to reform everything in their university, including education. That's a massive reform for a university in Japan, and make it more practical-oriented, innovation-based education. So that is where they are going. They are trying to completely change how the education is done to make it more innovation-prone. They know they are missing those skills and they are bringing them. It will take time, but it's starting. The other element is the Global Startup Campus. You may have seen the announcement in the G7 together Prime Minister Kishida with President Biden. And they talk about a concept of a global startup campus, which MIT is helping in the concept design right now to base it here in Tokyo. And that's for top researchers of every university to be able to work together with global universities that are champions of commercialization, like MIT or others you can think about, and be able to directly commercialize and start creative ventures with all the top research of Japan. And that would be share research together and share commercialization to learn. And after that, to spread throughout all the universities of Japan. Any university can come and leverage this platform. So that's the concept that they put out there, and this is in the making. Again, it will take time, but it's coming. And then they have a big initiative of commercialization and training to all the universities to commercialize at the scale the research that they have and improve those capabilities. The last pillar is on entrepreneurs and investors, and they know they need to increase more the existing talent. So things that they are doing is they started by bringing accelerators to Japan because they didn't have too many of the global accelerators here. So there was no good training that would know how to do this globally. And they were very successful. That was started by Jetro, actually. And a big kudos to Jetro for that program. Really worked very well at attracting a lot of those accelerators. And right now, after 3 years, we have 2 or 3 that are thinking of setting office here or are expanding, like Plug and Play was already here, but you have TechStars that already came, Alchemist that also came with this program. You have Skydeck from Berkeley. So very interesting players that are starting to consider and learn about Japan and expanding, potentially working with Japanese entrepreneurs here. So this is something that has been in the making, and probably you will see more. The other thing you are starting to see is inbound and outbound of talent. And this is for entrepreneurs. JStar X is a program from METI, and they are going to all those ecosystems. In the US, you have East Coast, West Coast. East Coast is primarily Boston for biotech, because Japan is very strong on that. But what they are doing is to start taking the entrepreneurs and not giving them just a tool, giving them a training of how do they access funding, how do they access the market of those destinations. So it's a longer term program, but you will start seeing how this starts scaling. And the other thing is to bring talent from outside to Japan. This is not only for entrepreneurs, it's also for VCs. There is a conscious understanding that the VC industry here has been very local at the scale, and it needs the skills of talent to be able to invest more with a commercial mindset. So there will be also training on those kind of fellows. And on that, if you are interested, please let me know, because we'll be very interested in connecting you with the folks that are working on this to start training Japanese talent and facilitate entry of this to Japan. Okay, now in funding, there are many things that are happening, and probably you haven't seen the effects yet. They are starting to happen, but the things are happening in the background. The first one is about expanding LP investment. There's a lot of funding that Japan has, especially in the pension fund, other public funds like JIC, DBJ, or the SME agency, and in corporations. So they're starting to align everybody to do this. For instance, SME agency just has a 200 million fund directly to LP investors in other VCs. Corporations are starting to do that. You have SMBC, big announcement, starting to mobilize funds, and so on. So what I'm seeing here is a movement. It's starting to happen. A lot of work is in the background, mobilizing everyone to unleash more funding into the ecosystem, but with the understanding that it has to be in partnership with the VCs and the investors that know how to do this at a scale. Then there is some policies to facilitate investment, and those goes into tax breaks. There is a QSBS type tax break that is in the making to be implemented, and you can see the announcement. It's about until $17 million, but you have to reinvest to get the tax break on the capital gains. There is the Angel say that Matt talked about, and we can give more details later. But basically, that one is being reformed to actually go at the scale too. And then there are some VC structural reform in terms of accounting rules to make it more efficient for international investors to operate here in Japan. There is work on the markets and exits. We see in some stuff on the IPO, the global, on the public markets, but also on secondary market, and to allow more for fluidity in secondary market, and to operate efficiency, because right now it's very difficult. So that's also in the making, and probably will go there out soon. And then you have the stock options and visas. Stock options, the same as secondary market, they exist, but they are very complicated right now. So there's a lot of changes that are happening to facilitate that and make it at the similar standards as the US. So start working. And then in visas, this is important for you because it's not only the consideration of having visas for startup owners, also for investors. And that's something, some people are working on that, some entities. You will see that at local level, because what they do is they leverage a policy tool called a special economic, something like a special economic zone, but for deregulation, and allows for this kind of visa to be implemented and pilot in regional governments. So you will see that probably with Miya-san of Tokyo that is going to speak about it. And if not, you have other regional governments that will have it. That's coming soon, probably. Okay, so I talked about that. It was a little bit dry, but I wanted to give you an overview of that. The other thing you will start seeing also is these policies at a central level, but then they're starting to be implemented also in regional governments and regional hubs. So right now, 78% of the ecosystem is in Tokyo, but the rest of these ecosystems have a lot of potential industry base, but also industry specialization. So the government selected 4 global startup cities where they think they can create global ecosystems. Tokyo, of course, is there. But then you have Central, which is Nagoya area. That's a lot of automobile, but also robotics in that area. A lot of industries, R&D are there. Then you have Kansai, which is Osaka, Kyoto, and Kobe. A lot of biotech you can find there, but also industries. Fukuoka, which is called Startup City by their major. And they are probably the most open and friendly city for early startups after Shibuya. And then you have 4 others, which is Sapporo, Sendai, Hiroshima, and Kitakyushu. All of them have a specialization. Like Sapporo will go for space tech and ag tech. Sendai, you have semiconductors, Kitakyushu is robotics, and Hiroshima, you have the leverage of a lot of their industry, like Mazda in automobile and also their robotics. So if you are interested in special domains with the R&D that is coming from corporate and research institutes, look at these clusters, because now they're going to get a lot of funding. They've been getting it for 2 years. The development strategies, now they've learned and are starting to implement at the scale. So you will start seeing startups coming from those areas with very, very strong R&D behind them. And you can check the startup plans online. That's the link if they give you the presentation. But if not, you can Google. It's not difficult. And then this is what you can see. Miya-san is going to talk about this later, about Tokyo Metropolitan Government. But every city then starts developing their own plans with their own budget. This is the Tokyo one. But think a little bit about Tokyo. Tokyo is around 40 million inhabitants. My country is Spain. The population of Spain is 40 million. Okay, just to give you a sense, this is like a middle country. And it has that kind of budget and power. Okay, so it's different scale. So a startup plan from this country has the same potential as a middle country. And it goes into that. And they are doing many of the same things in terms of education, bringing scale-up programs and global accelerators here, and also facilitating investors. They're also opening procurement, special deregulation areas, so it makes easier for a startup investment to happen. So he will talk more about it probably, but I think Tokyo is a very interesting place, and you can ask him then the question, but it could be one of the areas that could be of your interest because it will go the fastest. And as I said before, around 80% of the ecosystem is there. And then the other thing for you to know is there is a focus on frontier technologies and R&D. And these are a lot of the strategic plans that the government has put in place in the last 2-3 years, especially the last 2 years. All of them with a big, strong funding and signal behind it. The space tech plan to bring startups into space tech. Actually, Japan is getting very good startups scaling up, like Astroscale or GTI. They're getting them in Series B and Series C, competing globally like the best in the world. And that's for this reason. Quantum computing, the strategy is going there with all the research they have, AI, biotech, semiconductor, and Web3, where they are doing a lot of reforms to mobilize that sector. So you will see a lot of these coming up, but the focus is these frontier technologies. That's where they become more competitive and where they have better assets to compete. So you will see that everything is aligned and it's moving into that direction. Okay, so how that is looking for, and I'm going to go very fast because someone will talk about this later, I think. So the good news is investment is growing, and it has been growing. It's a little bit going down now, but that's normal because of the situation globally. But I want you to focus on the second part, and this is only Tokyo, but it's 80% of the ecosystem, so we work. It's very stable. Even when there is a crisis, they go down a little bit, but they go back again. So the trend tends to be much stable than any other ecosystem in Asia. And the reason for that is because there is a lot of domestic capital and corporate supporting the ecosystem. So this economy doesn't work so up and down as, thank you for the presentation, as what you saw before. I don't think here you have the same effect. You have some, but it will continue. So that's a good opportunity while the other markets go down. The second part is around 35 to 40% of startups are regularly R&D startups, hard science startups backed, and with very good science behind them. And that has been stable as the ecosystem grew. No matter how it grew, 35, 40%, it goes like that. The other thing you see is starting to work in terms of attracting independent investors and foreign investors. These are the figures that you have until next year. 8 times, 4.2 times, independent and then international VCs. This is continue growing, and thank you for all you coming here. This is just an example of what is happening with international VCs. And then this is the last slide. It's a little bit difficult to understand because this is the reverse. So this is the difference between the average of the funding round and the average of value in Japan. So the number here means there is a difference. There is less value in Japan. But what you can see here is that the difference is starting to shorter. Now we are in the 15 to 40 million, kind of getting even. And we are seeing more and more rounds. That difference gets smaller. So it's getting into standards. And what you are saying is the startups are starting to grow into those sizes of 40 to 100 million. That's where we are right now in the ecosystem. We weren't there like 2 years ago. We were probably in the 4 to 15 million. So that's telling you it's maturing. So that's everything on my side. I hope this gave you a good structure of the policies. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Victor. So we have a few minutes, and I had a couple questions. So some of you know Victor actually came here with the World Bank, and you've had a chance to sort of review other ecosystems around the world. And now you've decided to leave the World Bank and stay in Japan. And so I wanted to hear, is it because of this exciting, journey that Japan looks to be on, or is it the food?
Definitely helps, I would say. Look, I think one of the reasons, the main reason is the ecosystem, and we talk about that. I started to work with the Japan ecosystem like since 2018, at the end of 17, 18. At that time, when I came here to Tokyo, there was basically just plug and play was starting at that time. It was the only thing. It was very, very small. And I went all around Japan, was going to Osaka, and it was like, where are the startups? It was difficult to find. And the change that we have witnessed since then is amazing. And I think I've been very lucky to work with a team at the government that is very passionate, and you are seeing the drive of the whole government and the initiative, and then all the rest of the stakeholders. So I think a change like that happens in very few countries at the scale that it will happen here, and the drive and passion. And I just wanted to contribute to that. And that's the reason I'm here.
Fantastic. Awesome. So as you were doing some of this research and really understanding the Japan's venture ecosystem and what tools and policies could help, what was sort of like a big surprise?
Yeah. So I think the surprise for me has been the young people, the young talent here in Japan, because when you talk with regular leaders, they tend to be more age, especially in corporates, and they tend to be more conservative and difficult to see how much they have the passion and mobilization for that. Sometimes it's frustrating, very frustrating. But when you talk with the young guys, the ones that are leading the change and the management, even in corporates, leading innovation teams, the way they talk about it is, this is our only chance and our last chance, and we need to fight for it, and we need to change everything. And that drive doesn't stop. I thought, okay, maybe after 2 years they get like burned or anything like that. It hasn't happened, and it's growing. So I think that kind of movement of change was very impressive, and seeing it continuing, that was my surprise. Positive, huh?
Awesome. And on that note, another round of applause for Victor.